Hi there. My name is Miss Townsend and I love math. Welcome to Math with Townsend. This video is for grade 10 academic students who are working on their summative, and this is question number 10. So question 10 says, a soccer ball is kicked into the air and follows this path where time is in seconds and height is in meters. So what are we going to have to do with this? Well, we're going to have to find the maximum height. And then at what time does it reach maximum height? So don't forget, anything to do with the word maximum or minimum are asking us to find the vertex. So I know for A and B that I need to find the vertex. How long will the soccer ball be in the air? So this is more a question about roots. And how long does it take the soccer ball to reach a height of 16? And that's an algebraic question. So let's start by talking about how we're going to find the vertex and the roots. So let's look more carefully at that particular equation we were given. Height equals negative 2t squared plus 12t. So as always, the first thing you should do is think about what form is this quadratic presented in. Is it vertex form? Is it factored form? Or is it standard form? Well, this is obviously standard form because it looks the most like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now the plus c is actually plus 0. So in standard form, the easiest thing to do is find the y-intercept. So in this case, it's plus 0, so that was easy. And then what else do you do with standard form? Well, really, if you're given standard form, you either have to try factoring it, or you're going to have to complete the square. I personally, if I can, will always try to turn it into factored form. Oops. So I like factored form better than any other. And if you look at this equation, I mean, that's going to be pretty easy to factor, right? So we're going to take it from standard form into factored form, and then we can start talking about vertex and roots and all that stuff. So let's go to the next page and we'll start to factor. So copy. And here we go. So here's my lovely equation right now in standard form, and we're going to common factor it. So the common factors between the first term and the second term. Well, obviously I can factor 2 out, but the question is, should I factor positive 2 or negative 2? Well, as a general rule, you factor whatever the sign is of the first term. So because the first term is a negative, I'm going to factor a negative. So negative 2 evenly divides both this and this. Now, in terms of the variable t, I've got t squared and I've got t, so I will factor out 1t. And what does that leave me with? Well, if I divide this by this, I'll be left with t. Now here, if I divide positive 12 by negative 2, that gives me negative 6. The t I've completely factored out, so I'm done. So make sure that this makes sense. Go backwards. Do I get back to here? Negative 2t times t is negative t squared. Negative 2t times negative 6, a negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 6 is 12, and there's that t. Good. So we factored it. So now that we've factored it, the whole big reason why we like factored form is that we can find the roots. And how do you find the roots? Well, you find the roots by letting y equal 0, or in this case, we're going to let h equal 0. Because the roots are another fancy word for either x-intercepts or in this case the t-intercepts. So let h equal 0. And again, I said this in another video. What I found is that students really understand completely what to do if their equation looks like this, because they understand, oops, that there's a bracket here and a bracket here, and those brackets are the factors. And then what happens is sometimes they get confused when they don't see 2 brackets. So what I've always suggested is then put the other bracket in. I have negative 2t times this bracket. So now you can see both brackets, right? So if you don't see them, then make sure you see them. And again, now I know that if negative 2t equals 0, I have a root. So if this is 0 It doesn't matter what this is because 0 times anything is 0. And if this is 0, I have a root. Because if this is 0, I don't care what this is. 0 times anything is 0. So if t minus 6 equals 0, I have a root. So those are the two little pieces of math we're going to have to solve for. So negative t equals 0 or t minus 6 equals 0, solve. Dividing by negative 2, I get a root at 0. Adding adding 6 to both sides, there's my roots. Yay! So what does that mean about roots? So again, thinking about visually a parabola, I have a root here at 0 and somewhere over here at 6. And because of the symmetry principle of every parabola, we know that the line of symmetry is going to be exactly halfway between your roots. And that's important because the line of symmetry is where your vertex is. So we need to find where this midway line of symmetry is. So I need to find the midway value or the midpoint of my roots. So midpoint of roots equals 0 plus 6 divided by 2 equals 3. So this axis of symmetry is at t equals 3. And more importantly, I now know that my vertex looks like this, 3 comma something. I just have to figure out what that something is. How do we do it? So let's go to a different page because I'm running out of room. So again, here's the formula we've been talking about. Here's the formula. And we want to find the maximum value of h. In other words, we're looking for the vertex. And we know that the vertex is at 3 comma something. In other words, when t equals 3, we have vertex. So I'm going to let t equals 3 and sub it into this equation. And when I do that, I'll be able to solve for h and tell you the vertex. So h equals negative 2t squared plus 12t. And again, to do substitution, you write everything except for instead of the variable, you put an open bracket. And then into that bracket, put the value. In this case, t equals 3. And now I just have to follow the rules of Bedmes. So I have to do exponent before multiply. So there's my exponent done. 3 squared is 9. Now I'm going to do multiply. Negative 2 times 9, 12 times 3. And finally, negative 18 plus 36 is positive 18. So now I have my vertex at 3 comma 18. Excellent. So before I answer any of the math questions, I personally really like to visualize exactly what's happening on my graph. So 0, 6, and 3 are important. We'll put that nice little line of symmetry where it's supposed to be. And then we'll put the vertex here. And again, that would make this at 18. You notice I'm not trying to like scale or anything. I just want to see this picture. This is what the soccer ball does. And again, ignore my ugly parabola. That's terrible. But it's really hard to do it properly in a tablet and computer. There it is. Kick a soccer ball. It goes up and it comes down. So let's review what exactly it is that we're supposed to do with this soccer ball question. So let me grab this. And we'll put it onto this new, fresh, clean page. Okay. So the soccer ball follows the path. Grab that equation again, sorry. Oops. So here is the equation followed by that soccer ball. A, what is the maximum height? Well, we have the vertex, right? And the vertex represents the maximum height, so it's 18 meters. How long does it take this ball to get there? Well, again, the vertex was 3 comma 18, so it takes 3 seconds to get there. All of that math is in previous pages. How long will the soccer ball be in the air? Well, look at your diagram. It starts at 0 seconds, and it ends at 6 seconds. So it must be 6 seconds. So all of those questions we solved just by doing the math that you would expect to do for any quadratic relation. Finding the vertex and finding the roots are sort of automatic. So then we have this question. How long does it take the soccer ball to reach a height of 16? So let's look at my diagram. Somewhere right about here is a height of 16. So it'll reach a height of 16 on the way up, and it'll reach a height of 16 on the way down. And I want to know, how long does it take? So at what times does that occur? Excuse me, coughed. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Well, obviously I'm not going to use my graph. I mean, I don't have any values. Even if I had a beautiful computer-based graph, it would probably be approximating, and I'd much rather get exact values. So here's what you do. Well, this is the height. These are times. So in other words, I know what the height is. It's 16, and I don't know what the time is. So go to your formula. Here it is. I know the height is 16. I don't know the times. So we're just going to have to solve for the unknown. Just like a regular equation, solve for what's missing. Oh, we don't want that, do we? We want this. And again, now we know this time that we are at a height of 16. And I want to know what values of t give me that value of h. So once I've substituted in the h, all I have to do now is use my algebra and math skills to solve for t. So let's do it. So in a quadratic, you always have to make it equal to 0 if you intend on solving. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. There we go. Now I'm going to divide everything by -2 because I want to simplify. So dividing everything, 0 divided by -2, divide by -2, divide by -2, divide by -2. So now I have a simple quadratic. Are there two numbers that multiply to give +8 and add to give -6? So here's what your brain is doing right now. Oops, it's binging and pulling up weird things. Excuse me, pardon me, that didn't happen. Okay. Your brain is thinking of two numbers that multiply to give 8, and the same two numbers have to add to give -6. So think about what multiplies to 8. Oh, I hear you saying them. -2 and -4, -2 and -4. Good. So that's what should happen in your brain when you factor a simple trinomial. So the two numbers we found were -2 and -4. And again, we have this 0 idea. So that means this bracket, if this bracket was 0, I would have a valid solution. Or if this bracket was 0, I would have a valid solution. So I get t equals 2 and t equals 4. So think about this. I got two answers. Did I expect two answers? Yeah. One of them here on the way up, and one of them is here on the way down. So how long does it take the soccer ball to reach a height of 16 meters? You would say for part D, it takes 2 seconds to reach 16 meters on the way up. It also reaches 16 meters on the way down at t equals 4 seconds. There. Excellent. So I hope that helped. Pretty straightforward quadratic relationship question. If you have any questions, comment section, come see anybody in the math office, etc. Okay, bye-bye.